purpose of direct mail is to create a customer. That's what we're trying to do when we send out our letters. And it's not just letters, of course, but let's just say letters. And if the purpose is to create a customer, there's a few steps that person's got to take in order to go from never heard of you and don't care who you are, all the way through to I'll put my house on the market with you. And so those steps are not necessarily linear. And what we're trying to do is motivate somebody through those steps. And that's a hard thing to do, because what we're trying to do is change that person's behaviour.
It's quite hard to influence somebody without being with them.
And also without them knowing us very well.
Yeah.
It's not like, I mean, you and I both get messages from people that we know personally who want us to sell their house. Mm-hmm. It happens quite a bit, but probably more for me than you. Yeah. Because of an age thing. And when I get that message, and when I start that conversation, then I feel that they already know me. Hopefully they already like me, or they've liked me enough to get in touch with me, and they already trust me. So we're quite a long way down the line. And what we're really talking about is logistics. Is it a good market? Are they happy with our valuation? Are they ready to go to the market now? Whereas the person that we're trying to attract through direct mail is usually so much earlier in that process in their own head.
We're talking about here the psychology of the agent, or the psychology of the reader.
The reader.
Right, okay.
And how you need to position your language, the messaging as a whole, and the format that it's in, so the medium, how you position all that in order to effect a change from that person. Because at the moment, that person isn't motivated, as far as we know, to make any kind of change at all. Either they're not on the market and they're happy like that, or they're on the market with an agent and they're happy like that. So what we're trying to do is, our biggest competitor, if you like, isn't another competitor, isn't another agent. It's actually the status quo. Because at the moment, their behaviour, the behaviour of the vendor or the homeowner, signals to us that they're very happy with the status quo. So how do we change that? How do we undermine their status quo without undermining their status?
And how do you speak to somebody and influence them when you don't know their age, gender, motivations?
It's hard. It's really hard. So we're going to give you a few pointers to have a think about when you're writing your direct mail to make it more effective and to be able to affect change. And what we're trying to do is influence people. We're trying to persuade people. And there's a couple of really good books on this. Never Split the Difference, which you and I both know. Also by Robert Cialdini, who is, some people would call him the godfather of persuasion. And he brought out a book probably 30 or 40 years ago, maybe even longer, called Influence, which was the first book of its kind, I think. It's iconic now. It's a real classic. And then he brought out another book about 30 years later called Persuasion, which was all about setting up that behaviour. Mm-hmm. And one thing that was really interesting from the first book, and I've read it several times, and there's one case study I remember really clearly, where he got some interns to go and stand, this is how old the book is, stand in line for a photocopier. So in big corporations, you used to have a photocopier room and you used to have to go and stand in line for the photocopier. And he got the interns to try and jump the queue with lots of different methods. How could they jump the queue? How could they get in front of other people? And what he deduced from this experiment, where he had lots of different little scripts for this person trying to jump the queue, was the word because. And it didn't matter what he said after the word because, or what the intern said, they would still get granted access to the queue, or to the front of the queue. So he would say, for example, he could say, please can I go in front of you because I've only got one piece of paper to photocopy. Or he could say, please can I jump the queue because I've got some photocopying to do, which is nonsense. And as long as he used the word because, he was granted access to jump the queue. So if you were going to go jump the queue in your local supermarket, let's say you're in Asda, how could you jump the queue?
Using language.
What would be a compelling reason for somebody to let you in the front of the queue?
My kids are in the car.
Okay.
I left my kids in the car.
So actually, if after they've reported you to social services, the person who will be letting you in would be demonstrating their belief that they were a good parent, or that they understood good parenting.
I think most of the time you just accept it. if somebody needs to ask, no matter the reason, you just accept it, unless you particularly don't want to.
Yeah.
Unless you're in a rush yourself. Whatever.
So the very fact that they've asked is enough.
Yeah.
They probably won't need to use the word because. So we're talking about the principles of persuasion, aren't we? We're talking about behaviour. That's another state case study that came from the book, that they went round people's houses on this estate and asked them to put a huge sign in their front yard that said something like, I think it was seatbelts save lives or something. And it was huge, an absolutely massive, like a billboard size sign. Yeah. And they calculated how many people would say yes versus no. Let's say it was 90 people that would say no for every 10 people would say yes. If they then said, would you put a small sign in, then that 90-10 switched. Because you'd ask for something big and then you were going to ask for something small. And so they're much more likely to say yes to the small thing. If you went in and asked for the small thing and they said no, you've got nowhere to go with that. And that's kind of what we're doing here. We're asking people to take almost a micro commitment. It could even be as small as, go and read our blog, like a really soft call to action. Or it could be the hardest call to action, which is let us come and have a chat with you in your house, which I think is probably the hardest one there is. Possibly, would you come down to the office for us to chat to you? That's probably the harder option.
Yeah.
But I think us coming to their house psychologically is a very hard option.
We're very easily influenced as human beings without us realizing it. And so that's sort of what with the direct mail we write. We're trying to influence people without them knowing they're being influenced. You can do this through different methods. One is telling a story. If you can tell a story which puts the main character in the story in a similar situation as the reader, then they'll start being influenced as to what happened in the story to this particular character and believe it's possible for them. So that's what we're trying to do, build a clear alignment between your agenda. So if you're writing someone that's on the market, ultimately you want them to pick up the phone and contact you or contact you in some way. And therefore you've got to subtly influence them to believe that once they've consumed your content, they believe that their next action to get the result they want, which is to sell their home, is to contact you, which is quite difficult to do. And subtle is the key word, because if the reader believes they're being sold to at any point, they switch off. So if you begin it with, we're the best agents at your house, or we've been around for 73 years, or whatever it is about you, and they believe they're being sold to, it's going straight in the bin. And the next time they get a letter off you, it's also probably going straight in the bin. So it's very difficult to do. It's a very skilled thing to achieve. But if you're writing your own direct mail right now and you're not getting the results that you expect or would like, or even if you're not writing your own direct mail, but you're getting it through a company and you're not getting the results that you'd like, read through the content and try and put yourself in your target market's trousers.
Shoes, you know what you say.
I was supposed to say shoes. And maybe don't get in the trousers, get in the shoes, depending on what shoes they wear, actually. There's some shoes I wouldn't get into. And try and think about, if that lands on their doorstep and they open it, what emotions are you taking them through throughout the content? What journey are you taking them through? What are they likely thinking about? Is it an area that you're writing to that's likely to be opened by an older gentleman, or is it a younger lady, or who's going to open the letter? And then think about how you take them on that journey and how you convince them to either talk to the spouse about changing agents, or how do you convince them to pick up the phone immediately and ask a question? And that's what we're always trying to do. Being ultra specific in knowing who you're talking to and then talking to them is really important. Mm-hmm. You can do that any way you like in terms of demographics. So we choose high value homeowners, and that is quite an easy one because it speaks to ego and it speaks to a specific market where they like to be placed.
Yeah, because actually people like to feel like they are in in a group of people.
Yeah.
They don't want to feel like you're writing to everybody, because if you're writing to everybody, then that's not relevant to me.
You're writing to nobody, effectively. Yeah.